This is Joryka.
I'm Acting Crimes.
And I'm Jay. And this is Insight Check, a advice podcast where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom. Today, we are going to begin again with Dungeon Crawl because it seemed to work quite well last time. So we're going to continue to milk that cow.
Roll to milk.
Strength check, dex check.
I feel like that's a dexterity check.
Okay, I mean, I think there's always an argument to be made, but what if you really butter this cow up first, pun intended?
Then you get disadvantage for the terrible pun.
So you've played in our game before.
Okay, so this week in Dungeons and Dragons, I actually have something insightful to say about dragons and places. I've actually finished the first episode. I've gotten halfway through the second episode, and I have something to say about it. I don't know that I would start my Dungeons and Dragons podcast full of new players with an hour-long combat encounter. I think that maybe that's asking a lot. But it turned out to be pretty revealing of the characters, and everybody got a good character moment, and it was very silly and very fun, and it was a great way for them to just kind of crash headfirst into the system. It was good, though. I really enjoyed it, and the second episode is shaping up to be more character-focused. Susie is really striking me as surprisingly quite eager to jump into the roleplay aspect of the game.
That's Amanda's player, right?
Yes, that's correct. Susie plays Amanda, the ranger with the wolf companion.
Omega.
Right. She has really taken to the roleplay aspect of the game. A lot of people struggle with that pillar of the game at first. They stick mostly to the mechanics and play around with rolling, and they joke about rolling a lot at the start of the game, but she's jumped right into roleplay, so I was quite impressed. Joryka, what did you enjoy this week?
I enjoyed, sadly, but with as much gusto as I could, the last scheduled episode of Craft Hags. Danny Hartel, which is at DANIHARTEL on Twitter, is the official Acquisitions Incorporated costumer. And for the past month or so, she's been showing interested viewers her progress on the C-Team costumes for live games. And unfortunately, her schedule is no longer allowing her to do a weekly stream, but she did do a really fantastic project for the last stream. And if you are a C-Team fan, you will recognize the Franzia wine chest, complete with 4 separate, distinct flavors of Franzia, and logos aplenty.
Yeah, Danny Hartel is absolutely incredible, and the tips in her stream are invaluable for anybody wanting to get into costume design. If you go back and check out her archives on YouTube or on Twitch, I think you can find a ton of information, a ton of wisdom, and frankly, a really good person who is just vastly entertaining to watch. It's very sad that she's stopping, but gosh, what a good reason to have too much work to have time to do it. I'm really pleased as punch for her. She's done a great job. She continues to amaze everybody, and man, I'm really going to be excited to see where she goes next.
Yep, I've been also following her posts on the C-Team costumes on Twitter, which she's made available for us. So she's just really great.
All right, Rhymes, what have you got for this past week?
So something of a hidden gem buried in the most recent Dragon Talk podcast, which is one of my favorite parts, is there was a sage advice, which wasn't kind of in the description unless you scrolled to the very bottom to see. The initial blurb didn't have it there, but it was all about the polymorph spell. And I love rules, clarifications, and errata. And this was just rich with pedantry. I loved it. And I learned things I didn't know. So they talked about polymorph, they talked about true polymorph and shape change, which are both 9th level spells. And they were talking about weird corner cases wherein if you cast true polymorph on something and let it run its full duration, which is an hour, it can turn that thing into whatever you've turned it into forever. And then if someone were to come along and polymorph it again, it would be that thing for an hour, then turn back into the thing you had turned it into originally. And it was just, they were talking about how you can layer these different shape-changing effects on top of things and how each of them differ from one another, how they differ from the druid's B-shape ability, or wild shape ability rather. And I'm always interested to hear like, I wouldn't have even thought of that. I wouldn't, but now there's something I'm like, maybe that is an interesting strategy. Maybe I will be a lamppost until I decide to break concentration, and I'm here now.
I like it on Critical Role.
Critical Boy.
It's a Critical Boy. I like on Critical Role when they had Lionel on the show, and then later Matt confirmed it as canon that Lionel was actually a true polymorphed duck that got permanently stuck as a human.
Are you kidding? Really? That makes so much sense. I did not.
Matt made it canon in one of the Talks Machinas. He said that fans came up with this idea, and he loved it so much that he stamped it as canon. That Lionel was a true polymorphed duck that had been turned into a human, and that's why he had all these duck barbarian powers.
Yeah, because he was like a half-orc bard barbarian, like crazy combination of things who was obsessed with ducks and raised by ducks. That makes a lot of sense. In that it makes no sense.
I also want to just mention here, we have now done this for 2 weeks in a row, and C-Team has not featured once, and I feel like we have failed in some capacity. Let me make it clear that the C-Team is always on the list. We don't have to say it. It's always the number one position on the list, and everything else we're talking about.
And in our hearts.
Second to that show.
Yep.
Right. I feel like I have to pick something other than C-Team because I just spent so much of my week thinking about C-Team. I have to give other D&D shows a chance. So my honorable mention is going to be the TwitchCon game, which is now finally available on YouTube, and I got to watch it on YouTube in its uninterrupted glory, away from the toxicity of Twitch chat, to see this glorious show in all of its true prestige.
All right, come over here so I can measure you for a sweater. That's my mom impression.
I feel like Straub got so much love for his Proust, which was deserved. It was a great voice, but Mom was really good, and I feel like it flew under the radar a little bit, which is a crime.
I mean, we had Trevor for quite a bit. We had the Proust, and we had Mom, and it was just revelation.
We had the Dark Wine.
The Dark Wine.
And of course, we have an honorable mention for our episode this week, which is presented by Acting Crimes.
So, Chris Perkins, DM to the Stars Chris Perkins, did a Halloween dice camera action recap episode, a clip show, via sock puppetry.
Socks by Holly Conrad.
Socks by Holly Conrad. I mean, we already talked about Danny Hartel. Other great D&D cosplaying stars. Holly is probably the most famous D&D cosplayer, I gotta think. But she's awesome. She's super cool. And yeah, provided Chris Perkins with socks that he could then imbue with the personality of every single member of the party of DCA. And Jerica, can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on this moving piece of theater?
Well, you know me. I really like to do voices sometimes. And Chris Perkins completely nailed all of their voices. I mean, seriously, like, he did Paulton lines, and he was behind a couch, to complete the aesthetic. And so you couldn't see him, but there were some instances where, like, I looked away to...
But it's very important to note here. It's very important to note. His head was slightly poking out.
It's true. You could see the signature black baseball cap at all times, which I'm sure was in the contract somewhere for this Muppet Show. So he did several Paulton lines, and I was like, what? Nate? What? So it was very good. And of course he did all of his voices that he does for all the NPCs. So that was all really great. Especially when you're looking at a sock and you're listening to this like really fun voice.
I remember the Penny Arcade guys. I think they initially had Mike Merles come out when they were first starting the podcasts for Ack Inc. And he ran them through 4th edition at the time. And then Perkins came out for the second session, and they all looked at each other like, we like him. He does voices. And that was what sold them on like having Chris be like their DM for this whole thing was his bevy, his wide variety of different timbres.
Of
Yes.
all of the voices you've heard Chris Perkins do you have a favorite?
I really liked the halfling friend of Viari that was like the guy he went to like swashbuckling school with. And he was like this little halfling. I'm not sure if it was eventually him that eventually turned out to be a dragon.
Oh, it was the gold dragon?
Silver dragon.
Oh, okay. Not the one they meet later.
But he seemed like such a shyster, such a huckster. He had a 1920s kind of gangster voice while he's trying to tell them like, yeah, he has a secret magic power. He can sing. And that was probably my favorite. That and Jeff, the halfling who ran I think it was the Baldur's Gate branch. So that was what got me into D&D, was that game at PAX. Just, fuck you, Jim Dark Magic was. I think I came in like just maybe 20 minutes before that entire scene, just enough to see like, Jeff, you're a wizard now, and see that whole setup and payoff. And I was like, this is the greatest, funniest thing that has ever existed, and I need all of it now.
The puppet show, it was done as a recap for the entire series of Dice Camera Action, and he covered every major event in Dice Camera Action up to season 3, and including all of season 3 that's aired so far. So it's basically, you can go watch that and then jump into watching current episodes of Dice Camera Action. So it serves
if I may, like,
function.
I've seen, like, I know Critical Role did, like, they invested in having an artist create all these, like, still frames of everything they did pre-campaign so people would be able to catch up. I know that the C-Team folks have Zbashu doing animated recaps. So, like, all of these independent D&D streams have, like, tried to create some sort of catch-up mechanism which has, some degree of professionalism and quality. And WotC, the people who actually make D&D, are like, put Perkins behind a couch with some socks.
I love how Mike Merles, who also works with Chris Perkins, tweeted that day. It was like, my wife, what did you do at work today? And Mike is like, watched my coworker do a puppet show.
Yep.
So that's Dungeon Crawl for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this travel around Dungeons and Dragons world, and all of the fun and exciting things happening. Not only Dungeons and Dragons, but streaming role-playing games in general. I don't want to put us into a box or a corner. I don't want to back baby into a corner on this one. We can do things other than Dungeons and Dragons, but it just turns out that it's a really good game. We're starting off strong this week. What wizard spells would, either singularly or in conjunction, be best for creating an illusory or physical rock concert? Now, here's a question. Are we going for the full Nelson, full-blown, maximized scenario here, where there are multiple wizards, like an all-wizard party, let's say 4 wizards, or are we just limiting ourselves to one wizard?
I feel like, in my mind, it's one wizard, but my follow-up is, are we trying to do this on the cheap and use the lowest spells and, like, the least amount? Or can I just go wish whole hog?
No, we said best for creating an illusory or physical rock concert.
Wish?
Wish, obviously a strong suit. What would you wish for to aid in your physical rock concert?
Give me a rock concert. Pour that sugar on me, honey.
The music is... Okay, so first of all, we need instruments. Indeed. And we need music. Here's my suggestion for the first spell for this. Animate objects on a bunch of musical instruments so they can play themselves.
See, but we're getting into, like, 5th level spells there. I mean, like, essentially these wizards are roadies, right? Like, they're doing the AV... They're doing the effects. They're manning the pyro. Like, I don't know if they're going to be that high a level spellcaster. You're talking about a 9th level wizard who is a 5th level spellcaster. Like, I'm thinking 1st, 2nd level. Like, I don't think these wizards are particular. Like, they're getting better work.
Okay, well, let's limit ourselves then. Let's constrain ourselves to 3rd level and below spells. Then what are we looking at? Obviously, This is a no-brainer. Pyrotechnics.
For sure.
Prestidigitation.
I wanna make a play for color spray.
Color spray's good. I like color spray. Flying would be cool.
Yeah, completely obviate the need for the wires, for the charismatic
Yeah, exactly.
front
The
person.
problem is you only get one concentration. With
This is
Windward.
true.
I just need one spell, you guys. It's a first level spell. It's called Sleep. You just sleep the target. Say they had a really, really awesome time the night before. Paint them a word picture. Say that they got super drunk, and that's why they forgot it all.
Even if it's 1 HP, considering if it's 1 HP and you get the best sleep possible, you're looking at 40 people. That was already a sad concert. Maybe you don't need to tell them a lie.
Well, here's the good news. Glyph of Warding is a 3rd level spell. You can store fly into Glyph of Warding and then trigger it. So now we have access to
stage
multiple
work,
concentration
just
spells.
stand in that spot, boom, you're in the air.
Exactly. You could do Wall of Fire, Wall of Sand, Wall of Water, Tidal Wave.
Tons. Now you've tripled, quadrupled your potential audience because everyone knows what you're singing.
That's true. You could do something like Phantom Steed. That's going to be a killer end to the show. You just summon a horse.
You mean on a Tensor's floating disc?
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Lightning Bolt. What a classic.
This is getting a little Spinal Tap.
I think we're getting a lot Spinal
We're just going to
Tap.
shoot lightning straight into the sky.
Just add some dark vision
Yeah.
in there and get you neon glowy paints
My
out.
favorite, hypnotic pattern would be rock solid because it'll affect probably the entire arena. My favorite part about the description is I'm pretty sure it describes the target as kind of just standing there drooling for on a failed save, and then someone has to come over and shake the creature out of its stupor, which I want to say of some of the concerts I've been to describes some of the audience, a good degree of the audience.
I like the idea of Alter Self.
Oh yeah,
As a great way to add some flair to your look, to really establish that Gaga presence.
I mean, if we're talking charismatic front person, we're probably talking about a bard, and bards using disguise self is a well-noted thing until you wave a glowing plant sword in their face.
We've got Magic Mouth for backup singers.
I conjure them and I make them go do wop
Of
wop.
course, for your show-stopping finale, it's Skywrite and then Rope Trick, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just Skywrite a big, fuck you into the air, and then you Rope Trick out of that.
And I mean, you've got Fireball, you've got Scorching Ray, you've got Flaming Sphere, so Pyro you got on deck.
Exactly, yeah. You're hot to trot on Pyro. Yeah, I think you can throw a much better than reality rock concert, very cheap. Honestly, spectacle must be very hard to pull off in Faerun. People are used to this level of entertainment at a standard concert.
Well, I think some wizards are limited to a certain number of spell slots, so you might not be able to stack all of these.
So your question is, are wizard roadies impressive in a D&D context?
This is
Very
true,
good
and I
question.
think yes. is
If
the
I may
answer.
proffer one last option, second level spell, Gust of Wind, you got the Beyonce look.
Oh my goodness! Now you're really cooking with fire. That's thinking outside of the box.
I don't
Looking
need
at
your
that
pity.
beautiful hair flowing No, I'm thinking looking at that hair flowing everywhere with that gust of wind. That's incredible.
Now, I've heard sometime that, and I have no personal experience with this, that drugs can go well with rock concerts. And I see right here, 3rd level, Haste and Slow could do a pretty good job, getting that natural high going on. Upper, lower, haster, slower.
Now listen, I'm gonna make a pitch for one 4th level spell.
I'll allow it.
Conjure elementals. Would that not be the greatest stage dancers in history?
Hot.
I mean, if they're methods.
You have a water elemental, an air elemental, a fire elemental just dancing around you. Now you're talking about earth, wind, and fire in the truest sense.
Oh, Hot take. I was thinking the reason I was worried about 4th level is then you get hallucinatory terrain and it does everything we just said. I absolutely love how many spells already sound like metal songs. Phantasmal Killer!
I mean, Major Image sounds like one of those 80s songs that's insulting consumerist society.
I can hear Phil Collins singing it already.
All right. I think we've officially milked this stone. The long and short of it is that rock concerts are exhaustingly exciting in the Faerun universe, and honestly, the spectacle gets too intense. I think at this point in Faerun, they more enjoy just a simple artist on a stage performing music, because it's a change of pace from the high-octane thrills of a wizard concert. Let's take a look at another one. The next question that we have for today is, why is point-buy/array the preferred stat gen method now? When did this shift occur? When did this happen, guys?
I don't know. With 5e?
Nope.
Okay. Ron, next student.
Jerika! When did this happen?
Second edition?
It's true! Second edition is when rules really I mean, obviously, as long as there's been Dungeons & Dragons, there have been people lying about their statistics. So there's always been... DMs have always been fudging these numbers, but really in second edition they came up with specific rules. They had 5 different stat generation methods in the books. One of which was... The default original version was rolling 3d6 in order. Whatever you got, you got. Then by second edition it was 4d6 in order. And then you picked your class and all that other stuff based on what you got. Some classes you could only pick if you had certain stats. So then in a errata that they released later, they gave you the ability to pick a class, and then you got dice pools for what your class was. So if you were a fighter, you got to pick 8 d6, and you would pick 3 of those 8 d6 for your stat. So you would roll 8 d6 on strength. And then on Constitution, you would roll another 6d6. And then on Dexterity, you would roll 3d6. So, depending on what skill was important to you, you would roll more or less dice. And therefore raise the odds of getting very high stats. So that's when things sort of went off the rails. Third edition amended this and basically came up with the way that we do it to now, which is 46, assign your stats where you want, or you can do a point buy, or you can do array. But what do you guys think? What do you prefer to do? Do you like rolling? How many times have you ever rolled for stats?
Never ever once. I love point buy.
I recently heard of a stat system from Matt Colville. Which I kind of enjoy the idea of. And it kind of goes back to that first edition. But it's 4d6 in order, and then you pick your class and race based on that. Now, Matt Colville specifically stated that he drops if you don't have 2 15s or something like that. I don't know if I would do that. And even Matt Colville has said recently that he's not sure that 5th edition requires that.
So I build a character around backstory a lot of the time. And for me, race and class is pretty much set. So to roll, and then to choose your race and class based on the roll doesn't really interest me.
I felt the same way. I normally have a character concept, and if I were to want to go with that and then be harangued by, I think it might be really good, the system that Colville has talked about, for someone who's maybe brand new and nothing necessarily speaks to them, or someone who's really seasoned and just wants to play whatever. They want to lean into whatever the dice kind of drop for them that night. But I normally have half a dozen character concepts that I'm always trying to think up a voice for or flesh out a backstory for. And so I would hate for that character to just kind of inadvertently suck because I didn't roll the right way for them.
Well, what about 4d6 and you assign where the stats go?
That's fine too. The other thing is, and this is probably a little bit of OCD, but I cannot live with a 15 or a 17. Just knowing that I'm 1 point away from an improvement to my modifier drives me nuts. Every character I've ever rolled, always even numbers in their ability scores.
So then when you do your ability score improvement, do you always do it by 2s?
I always do it by 2s, or I go for a feat. Yeah, normally a feat. Love feats.
So what about the feats that assign 1 point?
Oh, I'm right there with you, man.
I've never taken one. It'll either be a full 2-point increase to one thing, or a feat that doesn't affect stats but has like in our current campaign when we hit 4th level, I immediately took lucky because it went with the character and it's a super fun feat.
Right. I think that it would be fun for a one-shot or a one-off adventure to roll for the character and see what the dice reveal as a character, to kind of not know what you're playing going into it, but then to pick on the fly. I don't think that's how I'd want to play a campaign. I do think point buy basically just gives balance and control to the game. You know where your stats are going to be. You know you're not going to have one guy who has all 8s and 9s and 1 13. You know you're not going to have one guy who has 2 18s and a 16. And he just starts out incredibly powerful, in-game powerful at the very beginning.
I know one of the things that's been talked about rolling, which I really liked, I know Matt Mercer was talking about it, is leaning into low stats as a jumping off point for RP. And Travis Willingham, in his game who plays Grog, plays dumb brilliantly. Travis is a really bright guy. You can just tell from the way he speaks and how quick he is. Like, he's incredibly witty, but he plays dumb to a T. And I think that's probably one of the reasons he's a fan favorite, because he has a 6 int, because he just happened to roll, that was the lowest stat he rolled, and he put it in int because he plays a barbarian. And it's led to so much great comic relief and so many great, like, almost tender moments. Like, I don't want to do too many spoilers, but there's a time when he and his best friend are up late at night. She's trying to teach him to read because he's taken like a potion that increased his intelligence and it's about to wear off, and he just wants to learn some letters. And it was hilarious and like tender and sweet, and that's the kind of thing that wouldn't happen if he had a 10 int. So there is definitely a case to be made for low stats, because I think if by point by the lowest you can ever go is an 8.
That's
I
true.
think. And so you can never really play into that deeply. You're just slightly worse than a normal person in that particular domain.
I think there are basically 2 problems with this, and one is, why are you rolling for stats if you're going to eliminate all opportunity for failure? Why are you saying, oh, I want to roll 46, but I want to roll it 7 times, and then I want to drop the lowest set, and I want to drop the lowest one on each roll? That's not rolling for stats. That is fishing for good numbers. That is a completely different thing, and I think that a lot of people are lying to themselves when they say that they're rolling for stats. You're not really. 46 is kind of taking a chance. 46 rolled 7 times, dropping the lowest one is not really. Rolling 6 sets of stats and picking the one that you like best for the whole group to use is not rolling stats. That's fishing for good numbers. And all of these are systems that I've heard purported as great alternatives to point buy and array, and it's not. It's just fishing for high stats. And if all you want to do is play with high stats, then just add more points in point buy. But I mean, you're not rolling for stats. If you're rolling for stats, you're rolling 46 in order, or you're rolling 46 and assigning them where they go, or you're rolling 3d6 in order, or 3d6 and assigning them where they go. That's rolling. But I feel like there's this illusion of people, oh, we want to roll for stats. No, you don't. You just want high stats. You just want really good stats early on. So you want to take that gamble because you know there's that chance. Whereas, and then like, oh, we roll for stats, but if we get bad, we can take point buy as a backup, or we can take the standard array as a backup.
Also, there's another way to get higher stats within the D&D framework, which is start at a higher level. So I think maybe some people start out at level 1, but maybe they actually want to be a level 3 or a level 5.
Yeah, it's true. I get really annoyed at all these people who are just like, oh, we want to roll for stats, it's so pure. But then it's like, we roll 7d6 and we drop the lowest 3, and then we roll 8 times and drop 2 that we don't like. And it's like, no, that's not rolling for stats. That is just you fishing for big numbers.
Well, there's also another thing that it is, which is a ritual. And so it could be that they're trying to get you in that D&D mind frame, so you do this somewhat elaborate roll to get you there, or you're interested in the tactile feel of the dice, so giving you more hands-on experience with the rolling might just get you to the space in your head where D&D is most scrumptious.
Yeah.
What you're saying is the first 18 is free. You gotta hook them.
Indeed,
I like
indeed.
rolling 46 in order. I like rolling 46 and assigning them. I think it's fine. I don't like it when people start coming up with these 100 different rules to create a scenario where you're always going to get really, really good characters. It's just not.
I think saying that one rolling method is superior is problematic, but I don't know if rolling is terrible.
It's true. I think that there's merits, there's merits to rolling and there's merits to point by. And I think the reason point by has gotten so popular is because it just makes sense for the game. I don't know. It's something I could rant about all night, but I won't. How far could a strength 16 character with the powerful build trait throw a 40 to 50 pound halfling realistically?
I mean, we can do the math, but I think Rule 0 is going to have to be invoked in this. Anytime anyone wants to do ye old fastball special, if I'm DMing, it's a strength check. If you have sufficient strength, if you have a 16th strength, which is 3 times above a normal mortal, I absolutely think you should be able to get a chance to chuck your small compatriot at whatever needs slaying.
Whip that halfling. Whip it good.
No, hang on.
Welcome to Napkin Math. You're on, caller.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna look up the mathematical formula for lifting in Roll20 in D&D. Strength score multiplied by 15 is your carrying capacity. So it should be 16 times 15 equals 240. Doubled is 480 pounds because of the powerful build trait, which doubles.
Ah, yes.
So
yes.
480 is the amount they can lift, and then you can double that again for your lifting, for your deadlift. This is just your carrying around. That's what you can carry around for no problem at all. 480 pounds is what this guy can carry around on an easy day.
And double that is what? 960 is what they're able to lift?
Yes. So 960 pounds. 960 pounds is a deadlift. So they can generate 960 pounds of force really quickly, right? They can just fling this guy.
That's like half an elephant?
It's pretty good.
I don't know why I didn't think of a whole animal, but instead half of a larger animal. Maybe that's telling.
A human athlete can hurl a 35-pound weight over 80 feet, according to Google. So, this is from hurling. So, if we know that we can throw 35 pounds 80 feet, we know halflings probably not much more than 60 pounds, 70 pounds, double that, right? So, 70 pounds, 35 can go 80, and that's for a human. Now we've got something that's 3 times as strong as a human. I think you could easily get them 80 feet, 100 feet.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's possible you could get that critter 80 feet out, which is like spear throwing range.
What I want to say is, in probably all contexts, the distance someone with these stats and powerful build could throw a halfling is going to be mathematically far enough every single time.
Oh, yeah, that's a great call. That's a great way to DM rule it. It's just like, you know what? Far enough. I can't tell you exactly how far you can throw this halfling, but I can tell you it's far enough.
Sufficiently is the distance, yeah. I like all the rules around how far you can jump, how high you can jump, how long it takes to travel, all of those things that are about like trying to figure out metrics in the game. It's always just a check. I know they're there, and there are some players who really love that level of specificity. It's never been a concern to me. Like we've talked before about like encumbrance. We're going to do that, right? And like, not interested. It's a realm of magic. There is no magic in math. Hot take.
Oh, take that, math majors, engineers. Well, let's get to the heart of the question, though. This guy is asking if he can fling his party member far enough. The DM should just be saying yes. The DM should be like, this is the shit I signed up for.
To be fair, he doesn't say the halfling in my party. He just says a halfling. There are some assumptions here being made. What halfling is he throwing? Does this halfling want to be thrown? Do we have to have a consent conversation?
The core to this, the special moment in this question, though, the moment where I think it took off in my mind, was when this person said, realistically, at the end. I mean, buddy, you have a powerful build trait which lets you double your lifting and carrying capacity. You are obviously a Goliath or a Firbolg. You are no longer in the realm of reality. You are in the fantasy realm of Dungeons and Dragons. You are flinging your party member probably at a dangerous thing or across a dangerous place. You, my friend, have left reality behind. You have entered the realm of fantasy. And that means just roll the damn dice. I mean, make it a check like you were saying. Just roll an athletics check. Give me an athletics check. If the number's sufficiently large, I'll say yes to anything.
How far can my superhumanly strong character throw a mystical person in a land of magic? Realistically.
Drika, you've gone silent. What do you think about flinging halflings in a fantasy world?
Roll that cheese.
True
Well, there
words.
you have it.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for listening to this episode of Insight Check. Please, if you have any D&D questions, some hot cues, please hashtag it Insight Check so we will see it, and you can follow us on Twitter at Insight Check Pod. See you next time.
Answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
Was
Insight
check. Please let me out of this word hell.
Blip, blip, blip,
Let
blip,
me
blip,
out of
blip,
this
blip.
word hell.